evening, good afternoon, and good morning to our audience, and welcome to the Filmmakers Journey Roundtable, a roundtable discussion where we invite guests from the filmmaking industry at every level to discuss our experiences and disappointing all our parents. Joining me today are two guests. First is Kevin Cheung, video editor / shooter and director. You really have to update your LinkedIn.
I probably should. It's completely
outdated. With over half a decade in filmmaking, with roles such as video art director at Catalunya Group and senior creative at Capsule 48, working with clients such as Audemars Piguet, McKellen, and Shangri-La. Also, someone that I have worked with personally, who I consider as probably one of the best run and gun shooters I have ever worked with.
Wow.
And
thank you
for the show.
Yeah. Wow, thank you.
And over on my right is Brandon Lee, a nomadic filmmaker with over a decade, closing on 15 years in filmmaking, with also filmmaking courses on unscripted for travel videos, with consistent Vimeo staff picks such as Hong Kong Strong, Thrones of Semana Santa, and staff pick of the year, Soul Wave. I enjoyed watching all of those. Very good stuff. And for this episode, we are discussing the one-man army, which is something that I'm pretty sure both of you have a lot of experience in. First, I do like to do a little bit of warm-up questions just to get to know you guys personally, but
sure.
You know, we're in the film industry, so what is your current favorite film of all time?
Wow.
That's a warm-up question?
That's a huge question to ask any filmmaker, I think.
Biggest weakness, greatest fear, largest mistake in life, and favorite film. All warm-up questions.
Yeah.
You first, Kevin.
I mean, there's so many films, but I think for me, the film that had the most impact on my life and my career will probably be Inception. And I'll tell you why. I think I was about 13 years old when I first saw the movie. And prior to Inception, I was only sort of exposed to Cantonese movie, like old school Stephen Chow films, slapstick comedies, John Woo movies, shitty TVB soap operas, you know, all that. So, and maybe some anime from Japan. So my sort of exposure to media was very narrow, very Asian. So when I first saw Inception when I was 13, I was sort of blown away. I was like, wow, so this is what you can do with cinema. There's so many layers in the story. The whole dream within a dream concept was crazy to me, which in hindsight, he probably took a lot of inspiration from Nolan, probably took a shit ton of inspiration from Satoshi Kon's Paprika, but you know, at the time, I was completely blown away. It was sort of the film that broke the paradigm for me. It shifted my perspective into what cinema could do. But I think in general, my all-time favorite film would be 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, because it's just such a masterful piece, and it's shot in the late 60s, but it still holds up today as like one of the most modern sci-fis. And the topics it touches on, you know, black holes, aliens, all that, I'm really into that shit. And it's only currently getting into pop culture, and Kubrick was exploring that in the 60s, which was extremely ahead of its time. And for that reason, I think, yeah.
I hate to disappoint you.
Okay, what is this?
I tried watching 2001.
Oh, no.
So many times. I tried really hard.
Yeah.
I remember trying multiple times to start it, and I did finish it in the end.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I maybe, hey, I'll sit down with you one day, and then we can watch it together.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you.
That's fair enough, man.
There were a lot of drugs going on at that time also that, you know, propelled it into the popular zeitgeist probably more than would have a few years prior.
Right, makes more sense to me now. What about you, Brendan?
I'd say the one that influenced me the most is Baraka by Ron Frick, which is a documentary feature with no words, and it's basically the ultimate prototypical travel film. So Ron Frick took inspiration from the Qatsi films. These are also wordless documentaries that were scored by Philip Glass famously, these sort of repetitive ostinato type scores. And they were films sort of basically just B-roll. Like you could simplify it to say these were stock footage masterpieces, putting together shots that didn't have a necessarily like narrative connection of beautiful things around the world, like cultural festivals, erupting volcanoes, people walking en masse down the street across crosswalks, The kind of thing that you see a lot in social media now, in reels or travel videos or whatever, but using those elements to tell an overarching story of where humanity's at now. So that is probably the biggest creative inspiration. There was actually a few films that Ron Frick made. There was Baraka and there was Samsara after it, but Baraka was really the masterpiece. And that was filmed, I think, also at a time when a lot of what Westerners would call exotic destinations, like Bali or Indonesia or Bagan in Burma, destinations like that, which were harder to get to in the 90s than they have been in the aughts and ever since. So those places were, for me, really eye-opening to see filmed in such a cinematic documentary way. Because normally I'd seen them either filmed for, let's just say, like TV news in a really boring way, or filmed in a totally artificial way, like 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt, right? So to see the real thing presented in an authentic yet really captivating way that felt like it was no less intriguing than a narrative film, that clicked something in my brain and made me want to try to do the same. And it made that kind of achievement seem a little bit more accessible, because I was like, oh, I could fly there too, and I could film that same thing, and I could try my hand at making it look cinematic.
Well, that crosses off my question on what inspired you to make film.
Oh, cool. We can get out of here soon. No, I'm kidding.
I do. There's one thing is when I was looking into you guys, I do a bit of stalking. I try not to go too deep, but I remember I wrote out all these questions about like the topic, which is today's the one-man army. I had all these questions about all these shoots that you guys both went on, and you have these director commentaries. So I watched your director commentaries, and you slowly just answered every single one of my questions. So I had to cross so much off, and I had to redo my entire question list just so it's something that, like, you don't have to just say, watch my director's commentary, right? Like, so hopefully some of these questions do stand out in some way. But that was one point I was like, oh my God, this guy's answering everything. But yeah, great.
I mean, there's more to what inspired me than just that one movie. But generally it was travel.
Okay.
It was getting the heck out of Middle America, which is where I grew up. Oh. I grew up as far from any coast as you could possibly be. Like, if you bullseyed America, I was directly in the middle, as landlocked as possible, in St. Louis, Missouri. Not to say it's a bad place, but it made me dream of travel, looking around and seeing flat land in all directions, and not really feeling like there was an easy way to spend my life exploring the world. Like, I didn't know how that was going to be a reality. I thought probably, I'll get to take a couple of vacations, here and there, see some of these places eventually, but no time soon. And I won't be able to do it in depth. I won't be able to really experience it the way that I want. That's the way I was thinking anyway, as a kid. I was like, these are exotic places that maybe I'll get to someday, but I probably won't get to really like adventure through the world the way I see, Indiana Jones doing in the movies or whatever. So yeah, the camera was the excuse. And as soon as I started making money, making videos, working for TV and whatever, I started thinking, okay, this is cool, but how can I do this in a way where I'm still making a living, but I'm going to the places I want to go and filming the things I want to film? And that was kind of a long process, but yeah, eventually led to me making travel films and then making social media about traveling and filmmaking.
Right. Because you mentioned that you molded your life entirely around sort of being able to travel everywhere and being a nomad.
Yeah.
Were you ever stuck at some point? Like, were you ever in a corporate landscape, or did you ever have a full-time job?
I spent 1 year selling computer storage systems,
shit.
NAS and SAN, for a high-tech company, because I had just graduated film school, and honestly, I was afraid to go to LA.
Right, it's too much competition.
Yeah, I'd done a couple internships. What's that?
Is LA like the move?
Well, I don't like.
I
guess the impression I have of LA is like everyone's a director there. Everyone's a shooter. Like, if you go there, you're not special. It's like oversaturated. I don't know. I've never been to LA though.
Everyone claims to be a lot in LA.
Right.
And nobody is everything they claim to be.
Right.
And you just get used to it. You meet somebody, they tell you a lot of stuff that they've either, maybe done or probably will never do, and they'll tell you a lot of things, and you'll smile and laugh and listen to it and think, okay, probably 20% of this is true. And you go on and you spit the same thing back at them. Oh yeah, I'm a producer. All right, well, what do you produce? Well, I'm an assistant producer. Oh, you're an assistant producer. Okay, what do you assistant produce? All right, I'm a production assistant. That's
so
a little different.
Okay, right,
yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems like you guys have really deep reasons for your favorite films. As the viewers know, my favorite film is Shrek.
Nice.
Solid choice, man.
Really
solid
enjoy
choice.
Shrek.
Yeah.
It's-
Shrek changed the movie landscape.
Saw it
also.
as a kid, memorized the whole thing. I thought it was an excellent paced story.
And,
Subverts you at just the right times.
Exactly.
You know, but yeah, that's
and,
me.
I mean, and the kids and the parents could go into the movie at the same time and then, you know, enjoy the different jokes that they present, you know?
It had a Matrix reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I just want to get into, I mean, like we've already started, but I do want to ask a couple of questions, specifically in regards to the one-man army. Well, we've touched on it a bit, but how did you get started in film? And how did you discover this filmmaking style that I've seen both of you have, which is kind of, as we said, just for our viewers, the one-man army, when I refer to that, is kind of like the jack of all trades on the shoot. It's kind of you shooting, editing, pre-production, if there's any lighting involved, kind of you're doing it. Maybe you have like 1 or 2 crew members, but most of the time it's just you. And I've seen both of you kind of have this kind of work style. How'd you just get into film, and what led you to the one-man army kind of filmmaking?
Right. Well, I guess I'll start. Actually, my inspiration is sitting across to me right now. He's the guy that sort of got me into filmmaking. I remember seeing Hong Kong Strong for the first time. As a fresh grad from a film school, I've never seen a travel film like that, where you were able to sort of seamlessly go through spaces and transition into, smoothly into different scenes. And at that time, that was completely fresh to me. I've never seen anything like that. So I immediately looked into Brandon's gear. I bought my first gimbal, bought my first camera, A7 III, exactly because of Brandon's inspiration. And I think my whole workflow sort of, at least in my early career, was molded by how you shot travel films. But what's interesting is that I was actually shooting branded content and commercials and behind the scenes. So the challenge for me was sort of how do I incorporate this sort of travel film style into a basic behind the scene video? And I think I did that quite successfully at Tatler, because no one's ever seen that in a behind the scenes video. That sort of broke the mold for a lot of my clients. They're like, wow, this is fresh. This is something I've never seen before. But the core of the inspiration, the core of it all, I think it came from you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Wow, big
So,
praise.
100%.
I think I remember looking at your stuff, and I wasn't in the filmmaking industry, so I saw your stuff, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I think someone on my team was like, yeah, have you seen like Brandon Lee? And I just checked out Brandon Lee, and I was like, Brandon Lee's copying Kev. What is he?
You got it the other way around. You got it the other way around. Yeah.
But okay, I guess it's clarified now. Hey, you're a big inspiration to me. I remember when I first started working with you, I kept on telling the crew, like, can we just do it like how Kev did it, okay? There's one time where Kev did it, just do it like how he did it. And I don't know, I can't replicate that, man. But yeah, what about you, Brandon?
Well, first of all, I'm super flattered, man.
Oh, thanks. Well, no worries, man.
I'm glad that we could actually end up becoming friends also, like in the real world.
It was a crazy moment for me, actually, when they say never meet your heroes. But I remember the first time meeting Brandon, it was at a Chim Sa Choi cafe. And he was just in Hong Kong. I just randomly hit him up on Instagram, and he replied, which to my surprise, he replied. I was very happy. Okay. And then we set up this thing where we were going to talk about projects that we were going to shoot. And I remember being 30 minutes late to the meeting. And I was so anxious. I don't know what dawned on me to take a taxi from Hong Kong Island to Chim Sa Choi side during rush hour. Oh, I was like 10 minutes away.
Okay.
By walk, but I was stuck in that road for a good 30 minutes. And I remember this whole time I was just like, oh, Brandon's gonna be so fucking pissed off. And then I got there, you were pissed off, you were annoyed. You're like, who is this guy? He's like meeting me for the first time in his 30 minutes.
I hope I wasn't that annoyed. I mean, it's
it was
entirely
on your face.
understandable.
It was completely
I was probably annoyed
understandable.
about something else.
Yeah. But anyways, we had a good chat. We spoke a little bit about projects that we want to do. But yeah, it was really cool to meet you, and it was really cool to work with you. I'm very happy that we're at the spot right now, and I get to learn from you as well. Yeah.
Kind of jealous right now. Oh my guys, I'm still at this table. Include me a
You
little
should
bit.
come out with this. You could have come out with this
Yeah,
today.
come on and shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
What about you, Brandon? Like,
No gatekeeping here.
you did say, you're talking about like the film Baraka.
Sure.
That inspired you kind of, and also you said your upbringing in like middle America, wanting to get out. But was it, am I right in understanding that Baraka was the one that kind of made you think this is the style of filmmaking, or is there not something else that kind of just, this is now what I want to do?
Well, first of all, I started off in motion instead of photography because I was terrible at photography.
Oh.
And I still am. I am not a good photographer. My girlfriend will corroborate this, but yeah, I tried to take photos with my dad's camera when I was a kid over and over and over. And it looked beautiful through the viewfinder, and then I would get the pictures back because it was film back then, and they were just terrible. And I was like, why doesn't this look like what I expected? And I just could not get perfect compositions until I picked up a video camera and I started shooting video. And then I realized what I'm good at is not the frame, it's the motion. It's making things connect either within the shot or between the shots. That's how my mind works. I don't know why, but I'm much better at beauty in motion than the perfect still frame. So that's why I do video. That's why I got into film. Second of all, I was always a movie geek. Probably just my form of escapism. Other people are gamers. Other people are into anime or whatever. I'm into live action films, and that's the alternate reality that my mind is always in. I go see a movie and I'm thinking about it for 5 days later, or for weeks later, whatever, months, years. Never leaves my brain, and that's the world I like to live in. Either narrative or documentary. I love documentaries too. I love social media. I love short films on social. I love travel films. I'll see a great travel film and then that's on my brain for like the next week. Just wondering, how can I get that vibe again? Or how can I get that buzz I felt watching it?
I do want to ask, in relation to the one-man army, why don't you guys hire like the 12-man crews? Why do you take it upon yourself to do everything?
Well, I don't know for Brandon, but for me, it was situational when I was at Tatler. It was truly, to be honest, it was just a budget issue. They just didn't have the money to hire me a team, and I had to do everything myself. But in hindsight, it was sort of a blessing in disguise because it taught me how to do things cheaply and quickly and still make it look good, right? And that's a skill set that I'm very appreciative of, Tatler. Well, they didn't give it to me, but I was sort of forced into that situation to sort of grow in there. But during Tatler, I was definitely a one-man army. I definitely shot, edited, and made those videos by myself. But at the same time, I don't think anyone is truly a one-man army. Because I did the production aspect of it. I shot it, I directed it, I cut it. But then I still had a team of people that were supporting me in the back. There were sales that were pitching the project, that sold the project. There were producers that were looking for scouts, looking for talents, looking for locations. So a lot of the pre-production was actually done for me. I just had to execute the production. So I guess I didn't really set off my career into really one-man army filmmaking. It was just dropped onto me because of my situation and my context at the time. As I progress in my career, I actually find it harder and harder to function as a one-man army. I realized that there are shots that you just cannot do as a solo shooter. And I was shooting around with Brandon, testing out gimbals and solutions on how do we, find focus and operate a camera by yourself and sort of still have that movement and still be able to track focus. And it's just impossible. There's a reason why film sets sort of function off an AC and a DP. And as hard as we try to get those shots, it becomes increasingly harder and harder without autofocus. We've tried our best. But we did get some nice shots, but it was very difficult. But yeah, I never really intended to be a one-man army. It was it just happened organically.
Okay. You never want to go back?
I don't think so. I'm very lucky to have a group of very loving friends, good people, talented people around me that could help me out now, and I'm sort of I've sort of seen the other side, and it's hard for me to go back to that one-man army lifestyle. But for travel film, I'm sure it's complete. Yeah.
For you, it seems like it's situational.
Yeah.
You never chose it. If you could, you would have wanted a full team, a full crew to start out with.
100%.
Right. Okay. What about you, Brandon?
I mean, I never intended to be a one-man army either, but in the town where I grew up, nobody else wanted to be a filmmaker. They wanted to be athletes.
Oh.
And I was the only kid who wasn't into sports. So I found friends who would be in my videos. You know, they were okay with like doing a little acting for me, but nobody wanted to do the tech stuff or really understood it. So I taught myself everything, the shooting, the editing, you know, it's like sound, whatever, lighting. All the creative inspiration just came from movies that I watched or, you know, stuff like experiments that I did on my own. Nothing really came from, I didn't learn most of my skills from any actual teachers. You know, I didn't have somebody like, I wasn't apprenticing anybody. It was mostly just trial and error from childhood to adulthood until I went to film school. And when I went to film school, they taught me the right way to do things. Big crew, a lot of people, move real slow, plan everything for months, you know, like worry about punctuation in scripts. Like, oh, that's not punctuated correctly. It'll never make a good movie. You can't use a semicolon, you know? Oh, too many parentheses. No one can ever act this. Like, and then I'm like, okay, do we have to do things this way all the time? I mean, I understand there's a place. You know, there's an industry, there's a reason why things are done the way they're done, and it produces every great movie that you've ever seen. But it doesn't have to be for everybody making videos or making movies. You know, we're not all David Lean, or we're not all trying to make, you know, Moonlight or whatever. And actually, Barry Jenkins was inspired by Wong Kar-wai making Chungking Express, which was an almost entirely improvised film. So, case in point right there. That was a run and gun movie, almost a one-man band. He made it on a break between, was it The Sands of Time or something? While he was making The Sands of, yeah, Wong Kar-wai was making a very traditional film, historical drama, Something of Time, and I apologize for not knowing the full name. He had some spare time. He was already working with Tony Leung, and he was working with a few of the other actors. And they just said, all right, guys, we got some spare time. We got Chris Doyle's apartment. What can we do? And they made Chungking Express.
Wow.
Yeah, and Wong Kar-wai was writing the script every night before the next day. Would show up, and change a bunch of stuff around, improvise the whole thing. Chris Doyle was basically just shoulder camming the whole thing. I don't know if they even had an AC. They probably did. I haven't seen behind the scenes stills of it, but yeah, that's how they made that movie, and you know, that was pretty good.
Would you say that you, similar to Kev, maybe you want to transition to larger crews, or you're actually really happy in this space where it's like you and maybe a couple of other people and just moving at light speed?
I want to keep it as minimal as possible without being overly restricted with what I can accomplish. So bigger crews are fine. I mean, big crews are great when they function, you know, when they're not dysfunctional. The problem I've seen is bigger crews for the sake of preserving jobs, I guess. You know, just too many people and a lot of people not really doing that much and creating bloat on the shoot that slows everything down and makes it more difficult to improvise. And I myself, you know, mentally, I'm very difficult at planning, very good at executing. So when I sit down and I try to come up with a plan, nothing comes out. But when I go to set and there's time pressure and I just have to make do with a suboptimal situation, that's when I create something really, really good. And when I have people standing in the way of that improvisation because I'm not sticking to the plan, then I come away making subpar content because I wasn't allowed to sort of flex the muscle that's strongest.
I do kind of see that, because there are times like I work with my boss, my director, when we go on shoots. There are times where if, you know, I'm taking care of everything, I'm maybe kind of the opposite. I like to plan things. I'm like, you have 25 minutes to get this shot and all that stuff. But I have learned, and I think it was working with you as well, it's like, give them time to kind of go rogue. Like, I'll just be like, okay, this shoot, from this time to this time, the purpose is this, go rogue. I do kind of see this kind of need to go out there and kind of freedom, but, and I remember I first clashed with some of my crew members on that, but I've learned to let them go out there and breathe, and I'll sit there and just be like, okay, it's fine, they'll get it. And I do think it's kind of a nice relationship. I do a lot of the worrying, and he does also a lot of worrying on his end, but I think it works out. I mean, do you have anybody that worries for you? Like,
Oh yeah.
get back here, Brandon. Get back here, Kev. What are you doing?
Usually I'm the one that worries. But yeah, but I get what you mean, yeah, because when I was working at Tatler, there was every project that I shot had no plan. It was sort of always run and gun. It was basically what you mentioned. I would go on set and I would sort of scout out the location, scout out the talent, and see what kind of shots I can pull off here. As I left Tatler and joined Capsule 48, which is a more serious production agency that dives into filmmaking a little bit more in depth, and they like to do things planned and with structure. And what it was sort of like a change in muscle when I left Tatler to join Capsule, because all of a sudden, from no plan, I had to plan out every single shot, and it was sort of hard for me to execute that because, in some way, I felt like the storyboard constricts you as a creative, because you're so channel and hyper focused on that one shot, to the point where there is no room or possibility for filler shots or just more abstract shots, because you're just hyper focused on this one thing. You get it done. You need to get this shot done, this shot done, this shot done. And what I found that was at Capsule, some of the videos came out a little bit more rigid than what I would produce at Tatler. It was better. It was better shot. It looked nicer, but at the same time, it was missing that organic element in some way. Life in some way. Yeah, it was very nice. It was very clean, very commercial looking, but it felt inauthentic in some way. Yeah. So I think one-man army and sort of guerrilla filmmaking has its place. But again, storyboarding also has its place. Yeah.
I'm curious though. So, is a one-man army extremely well prepared or extremely flexible?
A one-man army is adaptable.
Right.
A one-man army is prepared for contingencies.
Okay.
And when I go out on a mission critical shoot as a one-man army, I have already tested for basically every contingency, every problem I can imagine. Kevin and I were out shooting earlier today with some new gear and discovering a lot of problems and working through those problems, you know, in a low stress environment, a situation where if things failed, it was not going to cost anybody their job or ruin, you know, a high stakes project. These are tests. We do a lot of tests, just like people in the Army do drills, just like, you know, players, you know, athletes practice. We do tests and we see what goes wrong and we come up with ways to work around it when those things go wrong. And then when I go out on a mission critical shoot, I'm ready for, you know, most things that could go wrong. And everybody does this. You know, it's not like I invented something magical. I'm just saying with a one-man army, you are prepared to not be able to, you know, call for help. There's no 911. You deal with it and you have a backup.
I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of people will be looking at it. And I'm sure, you know, someone from the outside looking in, when I look at both your works, I'm like, are they just really good at winging it? But I assume it's not, right? You guys, as you said, you test the equipment, you've made sure this fails safe. Or is it kind of like a balance of both? Because there's times where we've been on shoots and we're kind of standing there in like the rain thinking, okay, how do we solve this problem? And we just like kind of wing it.
I mean, you can test for the technical things like lighting and gear choice or lens choices, or you can test for the technicals, but there are things that you just cannot prepare. And things like composition, things like how that subject is going to react on camera, the motion that you want to get. So I would say it's a fine balance. You really, you have to prepare yourself for the shoot when you have the time, but when you get on set, I would say 50% of the skill set is actually finding scenes from an organic, from life, from what's happening in front of you, and sort of capturing that moment. And for me, I'm lucky enough to, I practice street photography. So I do a lot of walking around and just finding compositions in the city. I find that very fulfilling for me because it turns the whole city into a canvas and you don't know what.
That's why I wanted to hang out with you originally. Yeah. I looked at your Instagram, I was like, oh, this guy knows shadows.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was so I had a lot of training in composition and light. And so when I transitioned into video, seriously, it sort of felt intuitive because I was always looking for these scenes anyways. So when I get into a scene, I sort of know what I need to get intuitively. And I think that comes from my street photography practices. Yeah.
And I think sort of what you're saying is what I also feel, which is I feel like a blind monkey hammering, trying to, whatever, inadvertently type out Hamlet, but I'm the blind monkey who knows when he's finally typed Hamlet. So I'm trying a lot of things when I do a shoot, and most of it gets thrown away. Very high shooting ratio, very high failure ratio, changing the plan constantly while shooting. But also, I know when I've hit the nail on the head. I know when something has gone right. I'm like, okay, that's the take. We can move on.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't know what the right take was going to be beforehand, it wasn't drawn out, it wasn't written. I didn't even know what the location would look like before I arrived, whatever. But when we've shot and I finally see the magic, then I'm like, okay, great. We could move on, or we could do a few more for safety, but I know we've at least got one we can use.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. But going into it is always blind. But you sort of know when you've gotten something. You walk into the scene, it's fresh. You've never been there, so you're just playing around. But when you get something, you know you've gotten something.
And playing around is really important.
It is.
If there's no sense of play on a set, I don't care what you're shooting. If nobody feels like there's any sense of play and it's all business, you're going to come away with a dead fish.
Yeah.
Like your video is going to just be terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that is the same for a corporate video or a commercial, a music video, a movie. It doesn't matter what it is. Documentary, TikTok reel, Instagram reel. Sorry, showing my age. But no matter what it is, if nobody's having fun, even if it's not fun, like sports is fun, or sports is play, but it's not always fun. But it's still play. And I think play comes down to improvisation, adaptation, and that feeling of being alive while you're doing it. And the moment you feel like that's no longer an option, then you're not capturing life and you're creating something that's probably going to be boring.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree.
Subjective opinion there, but that's how I firmly believe personally.
Right.
Has there been an experience where it broke you, or you come close to breaking?
Of course. A lot, yes. I'd say most ambitious shoots that I've done, whether they're ambitious creatively or just logistically, there has been a point where I felt like it almost broke me, and I get used to that feeling of being almost broken by the shoot. And then I remind myself that there is no should. There's how the client wanted it to be, or there's the way that it was storyboarded, but that's not the way it should be, because as long as it comes out good in the end, the audience won't know what was scripted or storyboarded or expected on the day of the shoot. They only see the final product.
Sure.
They taste the sausage, they don't go to the factory.
Well, I think in a sense every project breaks you.
Such an optimistic take.
No, but it's the truth. You start off with a grand vision of this crazy video you see in your head, and the more you work on it, the more you shoot, the more you edit, it slowly becomes this thing that you didn't set out to make. I think every project evolves, and the process is getting broken, coming back up, getting broken, exporting, really disappointed with the results, and then showing it to people, and people are like, okay, it's not that bad, and then climbing back up. So it's sort of every project breaks you in some way. It's just sort of...
It breaks your expectations. It doesn't break you. You're sitting right here.
Sure.
You're not broken.
I'm still doing it, but
Yeah.
it sort of breaks your...
And other people look at that broken thing that you made, and they're like, oh, that was immaculate.
Right. So
Right? How do I make that?
Exactly. But
Yeah.
when you look at it, you sort of... I don't know if it rings true for you, but for me, I sort of hate on every single project that I've made.
No, I don't.
Absolutely
Absolutely not.
Okay, there are periods where I enjoy it, and then
Wait, you hate on the final product, or you hate
the
on
final product.
the final
And
product?
I let it marinate for 2 months, and then I go back and watch it, and I'm like, actually, that was shit.
Are you talking about personal projects or projects where you had to share control?
Projects in general, just every project.
What about something you made for you?
Yeah, I still have the same thoughts. It's sort of I'm always hypercritical. It's sort of
Okay.
I like it when in the moment, and then I like doing it, and then I get to the editing table, I create the product, and in the end, it's nothing like I expected it to be in my head.
But you come back around later, and you're like, actually, that wasn't so bad. Once you get
Sometimes.
over that self-loathing cringe period?
The thing is, I don't think it's self-loathing or cringe. It's sort of I just see the flaws in the video, and it's not good enough. It's just not good enough.
But others don't.
You don't know.
They see the merits first.
I was thinking, are you thinking when you're looking at, like, when you're watching through it, it's not like this is a piece of shit. It's more like, oh, that shot, I was there, that shot. I wish that shot had like a little hairlight, or I wish I had something there. That could have been more perfect.
Yeah,
and you were there and you
yeah.
criticize it, but it's, you're not saying it's like,
I'm not saying it's like I hate this. It's it's a garbage piece of shit. But it's more like there's so much I could do better. Like the sound here was terrible, or this shot I could have executed another way.
Good, you're going to be alive for a long time. That gives you something to live for, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot more. If there's nothing you can do better,
Yeah.
that's called peaking. That's actually a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you reach perfection, there's nowhere else to go but, well, either, you know, plateau or down,
Yeah.
right? There's two directions. Neither of them are up.
Yeah, but it's not self-loathing. It's just a process that I go through with every single project. I start.
It sounds like a healthy critical attitude, actually.
Sure, but I start off loving it,
Yeah.
and then in the middle I hate it, and then I let it sit for a little bit, and then I look back at it, and it's not too bad.
Okay, so you do get to that point.
That's always been the process.
You come back around,
in a full circle.
and you appreciate your own work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it
that's
takes
good.
time. It
does take time.
It takes
do
time.
you have that process? Or just, you're
Totally.
happy with all your work?
I definitely have a process where I will, at some point, hate something that I've created, you know, that maybe previously I thought was awesome.
Right.
Usually this happens more if I put it out in a rush.
Right.
Like I make it, and then either because a client demands it, or I just grow impatient with my own project, like I post it, I publish it, whatever, release it, and then like a month later, I watch it again, and I say, why did I not do a few more drafts of this? Right. Yeah.
No, it's like, okay, let's say you have Soul Wave, which is great, and then you go back and look at Hong Kong Strong. The transitions were choppier there.
I mean, Soul Wave's not new.
Soul Wave's not new.
I go back and look at Soul Wave, I see all sorts of mistakes.
Exactly, but that's
But I say to
exactly my
myself, you know
point.
what? It works. You watch it, you feel
Right.
something. It's
Right.
alive.
True, fair.
It's not perfect, but it works. And I think if you don't have a sense that feeling, like, is it working? If you don't have that like gut feeling, either way about a project, and you know, you don't just feel this thing in yourself when you watch a film, oh, this works, oh, this doesn't work, then that's not fixable, I think. Like, I don't want to say anybody can't be a filmmaker, but if you don't have that switch that flips inside of you when you watch your work, where you can appreciate that it works without needing it to be 100% perfect, then it will be much more difficult, I think, to ever feel satisfied as a filmmaker.
I mean, there are moments when I am satisfied with the work that I make, but they're pretty fleeting. It's always like, right now, at this moment, it's good.
But don't you ever geek out on your own stuff? Like
Not
you're just sitting
really.
at home and you're just
Not
like scrolling
really,
through
no.
your own social
I
media. and you
geek
just,
out. I
like,
geek
get
out
in the
over.
zone.
No, I geek out over other people enjoying my stuff. When I watch it, I'm always like, this is shit. But when someone sort of gives me a fresh perspective and like, hey, Kevin, that's actually a nice shot, and then I find new appreciation in that. I sort of can never see it myself, but when other people see this fresh thing that I don't see, I think that's where my enjoyment comes from. Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced kind of both of that. I know in our office, we like going over the hits. Sometimes we look at our stuff and we get cheering, or if we make some new stuff, we kind of show everyone in the office. And then, not to name who it is, but there's always similar to you, Kev. It's not, you don't hate stuff. It's just you're overly critical. Sure. And we'll be standing there like, oh man, it's great. And we turn and then we just hear, sound was shit. And we're like, oh. Okay, you know, it's not like it's a hatred thing. I understand it. It's like this critical. How can I do better, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's also you got to hype yourself up sometimes. You know, you gotta be like, whoa, that was cool. I mean, it might not be perfect, but as you said.
But don't you feel it when you watch your stuff? That's you. You know, you're making your stuff. You put you into it, and you're getting some of like your own life energy back when you watch it. I'm sure you do feel that.
Sometimes.
What about your photographs?
My photographs more so.
Okay.
I feel a little bit more connected with my photography, but I don't know, with my video work, I haven't really shot for myself in a long time.
Maybe that's what it is.
I guess that's the issue, is because I've always, especially in the industry, you're trapped into it. You're trapped into sort of making content for other people. I don't know, like especially in Hong Kong, like the video that comes out in the end is never you. It's sort of what the client wants, and 99% of the time, I don't know. I feel like the client doesn't really know what they're looking for, because at the end of the day, they don't know video. Yeah. I feel like it's sort of backwards. You're supposed to tell them what a good video is supposed to be, but in Hong Kong, it's sort of the PR lady dictates how the video is going to be, and in the end, the result is far from your expectation, and you end up hating it because of that. It's like it lacks you. It's sort of, you're making this product, and that's sort of like this the struggle that I've been going through as well in the video industry in Hong Kong. It's like you're always making for someone else, and you don't really have the mental time and the energy or the space to create for yourself, because it's just a grind here. It's a rat race, and
You told me that you didn't want to pick up a camera one time because it just, even holding it felt like work.
yeah, I associate it with work.
That was so sad. When I
Yeah.
heard that, I was like, oh man, that sucks, because
Yeah, that was during my
cameras are great. Holding
know,
a camera,
I know,
it's. I understand your feeling, but I was just sad that you felt that way, and I hope you don't feel that way all the time.
Oh, I don't feel that way anymore.
Good.
It was during my time at Tatler where I was so burnt out because of the one-man army lifestyle.
Okay.
I was sort of like, you know what, I can't even shoot another video. There was a point where I was just like, this is too much, And then I was burnt out for 2.5 years, I think. So at my time at Capsule, I was still doing things, but I was sort of floating through things where I wasn't really thinking about how do I get better. And it was after I left Capsule, when I started my own thing with a few friends, that I sort of found this mental space again to sort of create and do things for myself. But yeah, it hasn't been like that for a long time. But it's getting better. It's getting better.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, if that's the case now, just go out and do some stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm writing a short film. I'm trying to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I am so
actually-
excited for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we're in. Well,
Yeah.
I can't speak for Ray. I'm in.
Yeah. I would love to get everyone involved when it's done.
That's
but
gonna
yeah.
be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think. I mean, how long have you? Do you spend a lot of time in Hong Kong and exploring the filmmaking scene and the people here, or is it? Because I know for us, it's like kind of a small community, and like we're always trying to just work on each other's stuff. And as you know, we've made some stuff that we've pulled you in on whenever we can. But yeah, it's quite a small community, so like we're always like super psyched to just throw our bodies. You need me to pick up coffees for people, there.
And I'll
you
get
know?
your coffees.
All right. Okay. Nice.
You're not going to have time for your coffee. You're getting his coffee.
It's true. All right. We'll just
Yeah.
do coffee runs for everyone.
Naz will get my coffee.
All right. Great.
He's already
Yeah.
volunteered.
But yeah, do you have you experienced like the Hong Kong filmmaker scene, or kind of just these guys?
Only a taste of it, honestly. There is a language barrier to a lot of it. I don't speak Cantonese, even though I am, half Hong Konger, half Cantonese. I didn't grow up here, so I didn't learn Cantonese. And additionally, I have just not really worked with a lot of other people. Like when I worked in Hong Kong, I've been this one-man army mostly. And it's been just ad hoc. Like if I need an assistant, if I need somebody to help me with the location, if I need somebody just to do sound for one shoot, then I'll pull them in. But I've mostly been hired to do my one-man army style. And for that, having more crew is actually an impediment,
Fair.
You're on a gimbal, you're doing 360 shots in an uncontrolled environment. If you got crew members, they're all going to be in the shot at some point. So I've not worked within the system of filmmaking that Hong Kong has established. I've been sort of, an add-on from the outside mostly.
Well, I've noticed there's like sort of, I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but in Hong Kong I sort of noticed this gatekeeping culture, where it's sort of really hard to break into the local scene if you don't speak the local language. And they have this policy, which is no new friends. They have this tight-knit group that are doing things and they're making it work, and they don't want you to be part of that. They don't want you to sort of break into that because that affects their business. Now, I don't know in the Western world, does that still ring true in America, where they don't really want to share their knowledge?
I mean, everybody with a steady job gatekeeps.
Right.
That's just
So
the
I guess
world.
it's a universal.
It's universal.
thing,
Doesn't matter where you are. I just experienced the same thing in New York, only that gatekeeping in New York is controlled by the actual mafia, like the Godfather Mafia.
Okay.
In its own way, yeah.
Wow.
Some parts of the film industry in New York are, the unions and whatever are descended from the mafia.
Right.
Right. Okay. So really gay.
So that's gatekeeping.
There you go.
All right.
I didn't try too hard there.
I'm curious about, in terms of one man army, and also you mentioned like the 360 camera and stuff, because I watched, was that fight scene you did in Thailand?
I've done a few of them.
The one.
The short film?
The short
About
film.
the guy getting chased?
Yeah.
okay.
I'm curious, and also with you is, do you ask for permission to shoot, or is it more like, do you ask for forgiveness, or do you ask for permission when you want to when you're running gunning for Tatler? Well, usually you have like permission, but when you're out in the streets, you really want this shot.
The location, you mean?
Yeah, like success rate. Do you usually ask, or do you just do it and then?
If it's public and we're not endangering other people, then a lot of the time I don't ask for permission, because essentially I'm making personal social media. That's what that short film was. It was my social media. I was making a short film for it, and we were being very careful. We had a fight coordinator. We had people watching out for safety. We were using trained stunt people who knew how to stay away from other people. We used extras as blockers to make sure that nobody encroached upon the normal goings-on of the city. So we had people standing at posts, to make sure that our actors didn't fly out of frame and end up hitting a pedestrian or something. And we hired, like, for instance, a professional tuk-tuk driver who works on stunts for the movies. He's not just a tuk-tuk driver. Oh, okay. He's a driver with safety, like, harnesses and stuff in his tuk-tuk, and he knows how to drive professionally for the movies. So basically, we operated very safely with our crew, and then we guerrilla shot in public locations.
Right. What about you? Do you kind of try to get, the green light from people? Or do you just like, I'm just going to go for it?
Depends. I would say 90% of the time I'll just go for it. Oh, okay. Especially in Hong Kong. The worst you're going to get is delete that. And that's as far as it goes. But if I want to get a specific shot with a subject, with a talent, then I usually do try to ask before we go into the location. Yeah,
because I'm learning my lesson, I guess, with you guys. I mean, with the film industry, it's just do it if you can. Because there are times where I've been like, no, let's ask permission, and then my director will lean in and go whisper, I don't care.
The lesson is learn the culture.
Oh, okay, right.
Every country's different. Every city's different. Different neighborhoods in different cities are different. This is where hanging out, socializing, talking to local people, getting the unofficial word on what you can and can't get away with. It's really important. And when I do travel, when I make my travel films, those films could be seen as very invasive of other cultures, of other people's sort of private streets or whatever, their lives. But before I shoot anything invasive, I hang out with local people and I talk to them and ask them, what's cool to shoot here? Like, what are people cool with me filming? What boundaries should I not cross? I'm in an Islamic country. Should I film women? I'm in Istanbul. Is it okay to film women uncovered? Oh, it is on this side of the river, but not on this side of the river? Cool, I'll stick to that. Very important to know. What goes in Beyoğlu may not go in Sultanahmet.
Right, okay.
So it's just a matter of like kind of getting to know people. Right. And they'll tell you.
Okay.
If you ask, everybody's very open about that.
Brandon, a Catalunya story.
Oh yeah.
I love that. It's probably, when I was looking through your stuff, honestly, people, I'm not throwing shade at your preferences. People do say Hong Kong strong, Soul wave. For me, Catalunya story was very interesting. It was a narrative story that was filmed in your unique style, in this travel style. And I think in the beginning, I was like, how is this going to work? There's too much movement. Why don't we hold it? But then by the end of it, I was thinking to myself, I have to go travel. I need to go see the world. I need to find 2 friends to go backpacking and have no plan. Because, if you know me, I plan everything. I plan every minute. For my honeymoon, I planned like within 20-minute segments.
Wow.
I remember watching that. And
sounds fun.
Sounds stressful.
Yeah. I remember watching that, and I was really want to travel. And I was wondering, with your kind of talking about one-man army and kind of going with the flow and trying to figure things out, was that a very well-planned film, or was it like, as you said?
We had no idea.
Really?
The whole time we were making it, we were just like, okay, where are we going to go next? What are we going to do? Staying up until like 3, 4 in the morning, just like going through footage, like, okay, I guess this shot could maybe connect with this shot, and I don't know, we'll just get in the car and we'll drive somewhere and we'll stop and shoot. That was basically how we made the film.
That's the magic of it, though. I think a lot of videos come together in post. Like, you sort of don't know what you got.
Well, it came together while we were shooting.
Right.
I was connecting stuff like while we were shooting.
Right.
But it didn't come together in pre-production.
Right.
The pre-production was basically just a few like Skype calls, just video calls with the actors, where I had them improvise some scenes and make up dialogue. And I just sat there and was like, okay, does this make me laugh? Okay, this is pretty funny. Do I believe that they're friends? Yeah, because they are actually friends, and they hang out together every day. And I was just like feeling the chemistry between them. I thought, okay, if I put these guys on the road, and if I have something go wrong, then I will at least get some chemistry. And beyond that, we had a choice of like 20 destinations to shoot this short film at, because it was for the tourism board of Catalunya. And we picked like 7 of them to try to hit, and we tried to make a route that went to these places and tried to create a story that brought the characters to those places. And I agree with you, I did way too much camera movement in that video. I should not have been spinning around that much. I watch that now and I want to vomit, it's like too much. But I didn't really know how to translate my travel video style into narrative either. And I was just kind of going with my gut. I was just saying, you know, this scene's full of energy, so I should just be spinning nonstop around the characters, you know, regardless of if the narrative calls for it. Things are just going to spin endlessly, and then people won't get bored. But what I think did work about that is those guys are really buddies. They have been through hell together. You know, they're brothers in arms. They're video guys. They shoot videos, and they've been through so many productions. And I think you can just tell that they know each other.
Yeah, I thought you wrote all the dialogue. I was like, this is some of the most genuine dialogue, because my biggest fear is not being able to write dialogue properly. And I was like, how did you write this so naturally? And as you said, it's these guys just naturally talking.
It was 3 actors, 3 microphones, 2 cameras, and a lot of beer. And I would let them riff. I would say, okay, you guys, you two want to go on this trip, and you don't want to go on this trip. You know, 2 of you want to go, one of you really wants to go, one of you is ambivalent, one of you really doesn't want to go. And then they would start talking. And then I would just sit there, I'd think, okay, what could make this more difficult? All right, this guy, not only does he want to go on this trip, but he wants to go on this trip because of some random girl he met on the beach who told him he should go on this trip. And the other guys know that this is what he does. They know that he gets influenced by the wrong people, and they know that this is going to lead to something bad. So, all right, do it again, and now, you know, everybody knows this is going to be a disaster. But for some reason, you guys are going to do it anyway and find your way there. And they did it again. And, you know, they found their own way with the dialogue.
Right. So you give them just vague prompts, and then you just let them sort of work.
ChatGPT it.
Right, gotcha. Yeah.
Well, I think my producer is trying to signal to me that we're running out of time, but I'm going to ignore him because I do have a question that I do want to get to. I'm sorry. You did mention your street photography, and I remember you said that you were interested in him. First of all, it's just he knew shadows.
I'm a huge fan of street photography in general, and I liked his photos a lot.
So
thank you, man.
I looked at your photos, and I was thinking, we spoke to in a previous episode. We spoke to a guy called Nazrul, and we talked about how your hobbies and your passions bleed into each other, into your work, and they kind of go hand in hand. For you, do you think it's your film lends to your street photography, or your street photography lends to your film?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think they correlate in a sense. I see them as very different crafts, because for my street photography, I'm doing it for my own enjoyment in some way. And I have full creative freedom, and I feel free to create when I'm shooting photography. Whereas these days when I'm shooting video, I always feel like there's someone sort of breathing down my neck, telling me how to create or what things I should put in there. So I can't even, I don't know, I can't compare my photography and my films anymore, because I see them as completely different disciplines. One's work and one's fun.
Does that break your heart, Brandon?
Yeah. It kind of does, actually. That's quite sad.
No. Yeah. We're gonna change that. I really think. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that personally, I think that your street photography and your film do bleed. Maybe you're not conscious of it.
Maybe.
But because I do love your street photography, and I think let's try and get the love you have for street photography into film.
Right.
And we're gonna see some amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
I cannot wait. But
I hope so, yeah.
On the future, I have a final question.
Yeah.
Is for both of you, what is the dream the grand finale, the swan song? Do you have one? Do you have like some distant future where it's like, that's it?
I hate planning. I like dreaming, but I hate planning. I do dream about more success in narrative film in one way or another, whether I'm doing series or doing a feature or just making shorts for the web and people are watching them, but something basically outside of travel videos or documentaries, you know. Directing actors, I would love to do more.
A Catalunya story, I think, was a very strong step in
Thank
that
you.
direction.
Thank you.
I almost booked a ticket to Catalunya.
You should. Catalunya is amazing.
Okay, all right. My wife
Go to Cadaqués.
Okay,
Best
all right.
fish I've ever had.
I'll hit you up for all the details, and then I'll plan it 20 minutes segments for all of them. But yeah, what about you, Kev?
I think for me, an end game would be just a creative agency or a collective of creatives. They don't have to be sort of filmmakers, photographers, graphic designers, illustrators. But I just want to have a place where creatives are sort of allowed to just be themselves, make things, and well, the company that I'm starting with, Nas, who's actually shooting here, and another partner of mine, the model is sort of, instead of the client sort of teaching the creatives what to do, we sort of want to flip it. We want the creatives to dictate how a client should want their video. And I don't know if that's an overly ambitious thing to try to say, but I really do feel like the creatives have the rights to dictate, because you are the experts. They're coming to you for your opinion, and I sort of want to flip that switch. And I guess an end game would be just a hub of people that can come together, make things, a production agency of some sort, and I could just run the ship, come up with ideas, come up with pitches, and have and create and just make things.
It's not a production agency, but we got 3 guys right here. We got a bunch of people on the camera.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of creatives here. Let's slowly build up.
You got a stew making.
That's good fun stuff. I'm super excited,
Yeah.
especially hearing that you have the short story coming along.
Well, thank you.
I
yeah,
mean,
and
I do feel guilty because Kev, we always pull him into our stuff, and I'm always asking on shoots like, "You got anything on?" He's like, "Oh, I just work." And so now I'm really happy to see that you've got some stuff coming on, and I think the whole team behind the camera also have seen you, and I think this news is getting them really excited. And please bring us on.
Yeah, I really appreciate
Brandon,
that.
if you're ever in
and,
town,
Absolutely.
join us on the shoot. It'll be
Yeah.
great.
Before we close up, I just want to mention one little thing about this one-man band illusion. When I made Hong Kong Strong, the only reason I made that film is because I also met my girlfriend Kobe on that trip.
Right.
And she basically forced me to make a video about Hong Kong. Because I started off trying to film on the street, and nobody would let me film them. And she was the one who told me, they will, but you need to know a friend who knows them.
Right.
And she got me those first connections, and she told me all these things that I could go to, all these different cultural events I'd never heard of that I didn't even think to film. And the inspiration came from the connections with other people. And if I had tried to do it as a one-man band, which had worked in some other countries, I would not have come away with any video about Hong Kong. I would have come away with a time lapse of a bunch of buildings.
Right.
So the cultural aspect of that film entirely came primarily from one very important human connection I made.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I was going to the final thing was I was going to ask you guys if you have any final words for potential future filmmakers, and I guess for you, as you said, it's the human connection, getting to know the culture. What about you, Kev? If you have anything to say to any aspiring filmmakers, any young Kevs out there, or young Brandons?
Just keep going, man. Just don't stop.
Okay.
Just don't give up.
Power through.
Power through.
All right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Keep
Well,
it going.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on. Thanks, Kip. Thanks, Brandon. That's all the time and questions that we have. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, the Hive Studios, for sponsoring this video and making this all happen. And I'd also like to thank the crew that is behind the camera, making this all possible. So as they say in the film industry, that's a wrap.